just want to start this way. We just kicked off the Aggie's Can Food Drive. For those of you who don't know, that's the nation's largest student-run can drive. They'll be out this Saturday with a tent set up, the Aggie Can tent in the fan zone. And so to all the Aggies, to all the people that support this program coming out Saturday, if you could chip in, that'd be great. The cans benefit the Brazos Valley Food Bank and the 12th Can Foundation here in town. And so just a great cause and a great opportunity to be an Aggie on Saturday. As we look back to recap the Missouri game, I always start with our players of the week. Our scout team players of the week offensively was Ty Thomas. On defense, we went with Aiden Herrera. And on special teams, Tristan Jernigan. For the game, lineman of the week offensively, Demetrius Crownover and Trey Zuhn. I thought the challenge of handling the outside edges was a big piece of that game. And for the most part, we were able to kind of contain those two kids, and I think that played a huge role in our success. And then obviously Trey having to flip in and play center and do a really good job, and it was awesome to see Deuce Fothery pop in ready to roll and play a big role at tackle for us. Defensively, again, it was Tyler Onyedem, 5 tackles, 2 TFLs, did a really, really good job in the middle of the run defense and made a couple plays that got them off schedule and helped us get off the field. Players of the week, offensively, KC Concepcion. Obviously, the touchdown on the screen was such a huge play, and again, just continues to be very electric with the football in his hands. Defensively, want to give a shout out to Cashius Howell, who was the SEC Defensive Lineman of the Week. Damian Sanford was the co-SEC Defensive Player of the Week, but internally we actually went with Tyreek Chappelle as our Player of the Week for the job he did on their slot, limiting Kevin Coleman basically to one catch for 1 yard on a jet sweep. And so I thought that was Tyreek's best game of the year. And then special teams, there was a lot of debate on who the special teams Player of the Week was. Some thought Dalton Brooks, some thought Albert Regis, depending on who you believe on the on-field fight that went on about whether to keep the fake on or call it off. And so I'll let you guys decide who gets that one. And so now we turn our attention moving forward to a really challenging South Carolina team. Obviously a team coming in who has played one of the most challenging schedules in the country. When you look at it, this will be their 5th straight game against a team ranked in the top 12 or higher. I can't imagine that has happened very often throughout the history of college football. I don't know what they did to the scheduling gods to get the schedule that they've gotten. And so, in my opinion, a team that is extremely talented, much better than their record would indicate, coming off of a bye week, obviously with a lot of confidence based on what they did to us last year. And so we're going to have a tremendous challenge on Saturday, and going to need to come out and play our best football to have a chance to win. And so it's kind of where we're at. So from there, we'll open it up to questions.
Coach to the right, 3rd row, David.
Coach Elko, given how much you all have prioritized finishing games, finishing the season, what is it about this team that allows them consistently to play their best at the end of games?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think it starts with the work that we do with Coach Moffitt and the strength staff. It's hard to say that that's not a big piece of it. I think they have a maturity about them that understands the need to elevate their level in the 4th quarter. I think that plays a role. And then I think, when you have an experienced veteran group, to some degree, you would hope that would be the case because they've been through it enough. They understand what it takes to elevate their game at the end. And so I think that probably plays a role in it as well.
Stay to the right, 2nd row, Olin.
And Mike, first of all, if it's not state secret, can you give us an idea how that all did go down to make that call? Is it something that y'all had? I have to admit, I didn't. Was Missouri lining up like that the whole game, or how did that all unfold?
Yeah, I think with most things like that, there's always a mechanic to check it off if you don't feel good about your ability to hit it. That's something we talk a lot about with the kids each week about, okay, hey, these are the things that maybe indicate this might not work the way we hoped it would. I think there was a little bit of an on-field debate about whether they had one of those looks or didn't, and ultimately they decided to keep it on, and it worked.
Okay, and then last year, you told us about LaNorris Sellers and getting your guys to understand the challenge that he presented. Is the challenge the same? I mean, they're not having he's not having as much success, and they're not having as much success offensively. When you look at the film of him, things like that, what do you see different?
I see the same big, physical, athletic kid that ran all over us and threw all over us last year. So I see the same kid, and so our kids better see this same kid because he absolutely lit us up last year. And so if we want to have any level of success on Saturday, we will do a much better job of understanding what the challenge actually is this year.
To the left, Alex.
First, just what's the update on Scooby Williams, just how he's doing?
Good. Getting better every week, and we'll kind of see how this week goes.
Gotcha. And, you mentioned how y'all had to pivot on the offensive line. Just what maybe impressed you the most that unit was able to do what they did? Y'all stuck with that kind of look, it seemed like most of the game.
Yeah, I obviously Armaj was out in the second half, and I think that's one of the reasons why we play the way we do. I think everyone always asks questions about like the O-line, like why do you shift guys around? Why do you rotate? Are you serious about Trey Zuhn playing center? And we do those things because at some point in a game something's going to happen, and you're going to need the group to go out and play a certain way to go win a football game. And when you're at the stage we're at, where there's so much meaning behind each game, imagine if we hadn't played Trey at center at all, or we couldn't put that lineup out there together, or whatever the case may be. And so I just think that's how we think about these things from a big picture standpoint from day one. And so to us, it's really important that you have enough continuity on that line and enough guys ready to go that it's not one injury that would rock your world. And so, Armaj got dinged up. He couldn't go anymore. He tried. He gave us everything he had, but he couldn't keep going. And so, we went with the group that was what we felt like would give us the best chance to win the rest of the way.
Coach, all the way in the back, Donna.
Coach, do you have an update on Armaj?
Yeah, he's fine.
Okay. And then also, how have you been able to keep outside noise outside your building?
Yeah, again, I just think last year was such a learning lesson for us, and I've referenced it a bunch, but nobody appreciated, obviously, because like me, everyone was so disappointed with how the year ended, but I don't think anyone appreciated the challenge that was being in that position really for the first time, and for those kids ever. For the program, we hadn't been in that position very much either, and so I think we just learned a lot. I think we learned a lot about what would come with it, how to handle it all, what it all really meant at the end of the day, and again, we've handled it the right way for 9 games. There's still 3 more that we've got to handle one at a time, and so that starts Saturday.
Coach, we'll go right next to him, Tyler. Or right next to her, sorry, Tyler.
Mike, does it feel like forever since you've been at home, and then just how exciting is it to have this kind of momentum coming back to Kyle Field this week?
Yeah, it's funny. I stood on the podium after the Florida game, and I said, we're going to go on the road for about 5 weeks, and hopefully when we return to Kyle Field, we'll return with a lot on the line. And certainly there's a lot on the line Saturday. And so certainly would anticipate the 12th man showing up really well. They always do, but I would imagine for this one they'll show up even better. And, it's a great opportunity for us to get back home and play a really, really big game against a really talented football team.
We're going to go to the left, third row, Matthew.
Coach, how telling is it of this team's character to go undefeated on a 3-game SEC road stretch?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I think, I don't know, would anyone honestly look me in the eye and tell me you thought we would do that at the beginning of the year? And again, not in any bad way. I'm not sure that I would have looked in the mirror and said I thought we could either. Those things you have to learn how to do those things, and this program hasn't really done that recently. And so I think it's a testament to the kids. I think they formed a lot of confidence when we went into South Bend and got that one done. And I think they believe in what they're capable of. But for them to still go out there and do it 3 straight weeks, it's extremely impressive.
Front row, right, Travis.
Yeah, with the sack this weekend, Cashius only has, I believe, DeMontre Moore and Myles Garrett in the SEC era has more single season sacks. As a defensive coach, how do you appreciate the kind of season that he's had, and do you kind of root for him maybe to hit one of those Myles Garrett seasons or something like that?
Yeah, for sure. I think it'd be great for him. I think it'd be great for our program. I don't know that Myles would like it, but maybe some part of him would enjoy the program having success. No, I think he has really helped himself a lot coming back this year. We talked about how important it was to flip the narrative in this program with those guys that were fringe guys making a decision to come back, actually seeing them develop their bodies, go out and have a significantly better season. You can't speak to how much that means to our program moving forward. And so because of all of that, I would love it to end with him setting the single season sack record, with him getting a ton of national recognition, and him ultimately feeling like he made a really good decision for himself and his family by being part of this program one more year.
We'll go to the back right, Chip.
I know you have plenty of offensive playmakers, but after seeing Dalton Brooks with the ball a couple of times, any thought of getting him involved on that side of the ball anymore?
No, neither one of them. He should have scored on both of them is what I told him. But no, so no, yeah, he's a really talented kid. He's a really athletic kid. Obviously, that's a game that you dream of when you're playing safety, to be able to account for 78 total yards. And there's obviously two huge plays for us from a momentum standpoint.
We'll go to the left, Aiden, fifth row.
So you mentioned last season and this season, there's a big difference in how the boys are responding to the pressure that this is and what is on the line. What are some of those specifics that you've seen in players from last year to this year of they're taking this all in a little bit more, they're responding differently?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is they're not taking it all in. I think the thing that we talked the most about was blocking out so much of the noise, and I think part of what we experienced last year was, there had been so much negativity that group had to deal with, that coming out of the LSU win was really the first time they were recognized as not a bad football, you know what I mean? And I don't mean that in a bad way, but that's just how it was. And so it was hard to get them to stay away and stay focused at the level they needed to. I think this group now is probably a little bit more versed in the swings, the pendulum, what really all of that noise means, which is absolutely nothing, and now can kind of lock in on the things they need to do to just go out week in and week out and have success at the level we want to.
To the right, second row, Carter.
Mike, each of the last two games in the second half, you guys really moved the ball pretty much at will, and y'all didn't really have to throw that much to do it. I don't think y'all threw beyond maybe 10 yards from the line of scrimmage, and I'm wondering, just to do that, is that more wearing out opponents on the ground and that kind of thing, or is it more scheme that allowed you guys to do that? What do you think has allowed that?
Yeah, probably two separate conversations. I think just the way the third quarter played out at LSU, I just think it went a certain way. I don't think we had any intention of not throwing the ball. I just think it was it got out of hand so quick, and then we like to play to win, and so when you get those leads, we want to be intelligent with how we close games out. That's something that's really important to us. And so I tell all our guys, if you want to go to a team that stat pads in the fourth quarter, this won't be it. When we get to the fourth quarter with a lead, we're going to do everything we can to win the football game. That'll be the most important thing. And then last week, I just think it was, we felt as though our advantage was getting the ball in our skill kids' hands. I think we had over 150 yards after catch. We didn't want their D-line to be able to impact the game. And so a big part of it last week, I felt like it was a little bit more strategic to say our advantage is if we can get the ball out into our skill kids on the perimeter, we're going to have an advantage. And then obviously when we needed to run the football and find ways to run the football as the game wore on, we were able to do that.
And then for Missouri, Caden Green, after the game, said that y'all's defense was calling out plays. Were they tipping their plays at all, or is that something that you guys have kind of learned to do game to game where maybe y'all can pick up on some things?
I don't know anything about that.
We'll go to the third row to the left.
Another strong week defending the pass. Kind of from where you guys were at this point last season, did you envision it reaching the level that it is now when you took over play calling duties?
Hoped is probably the word. Hoped that it would get to this point. Certainly people asked me enough in the offseason about could we fix the pass defense? Would the pass defense get fixed? Would we be any better? I think through 9 games we have been. Now we've got to figure out how to stop the run a little bit. better than we've been able to. But yeah, I do think we've made some really, really good strides, and it's been good to see kids. Obviously getting Tariq Chappelle back matters a lot. Will Lee has continued to play at a really high level for us. Des Ricks, I think, has taken a massive step forward, and you even saw Jordan Shaw out there making some plays in some critical moments on Saturday. And so I think we're in a really good place with the guys that we have and their ability to cover.
When you did make that decision to take over the play calling duties, how did those conversations kind of with the defensive staff and with Coach Bateman kind of go during the offseason?
Yeah, I still don't like the emphasis on that. To me, isn't as big as it was just the staff coming together and just making sure we tightened up what we were doing. And I think as much as anything, it's year two and the continuity that comes along with the staff being together. Last year again, we never make excuses. It's not the program we are, but you had a group of guys who had never really worked together. I hadn't worked with Coach Bateman in 20 years. Coach Peterson, we weren't very familiar with each other, with a hodgepodge group of DBs that we had just thrown together from the transfer portal and you had to build it all as fast as you could and as quick as you could. And then we lost Tyreek in week 2, and that kind of changed things and shifted things in a different direction. And so, yeah, I don't think it has much to do with the play calling. I just think it's the group being together and more on the same page.
We'll go to the front right. Mark?
Mike, EJ had a couple of really big runs this weekend. He's become a more important part of the offense, I guess, with Le'Veon down. Can you talk a little bit about him? And, it just seems like a good feel-good story to see him do this in his final season.
Yeah, I think it's an awesome story. I think it's an awesome story to this program. I think it's an awesome story to who he is as a kid and who his family is. I just think, again, and I've said this before, but it bears repeating, the character it takes to come back for your last year of football, go into the year not really in a position to get a lot of carries, keep working, keep doing the things you needed to do to be prepared and be ready, get opportunities, make the most of those opportunities, still be in a crowded room, right? And so still not really being able to carry the ball 20 times a game like you probably would like, but still showing up week in and week out, making critical plays that are helping us win football games. And that's what, and I talk to our guys about this all the time, people inside of the game, inside of the building, probably understand what winning football looks like, what championship football looks like a little bit different. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but championship football looks like that. It looks like the guy who goes out there on 3rd and 2 and lowers his shoulder and gets 2.5 yards, right? And that's not the most attractive clip to put out on social media. It's not the thing that catches a lot of the headlines, but it's as big of a reason why we're 9-0 as anything else that's happening in our program. And so those things matter a lot when you talk about why are we having success and why are we winning at the level we're winning at.
To the left, Tony.
Mike, post-game you had talked about Marcel checked into the play that sprung KC. Can you just talk about his maturation, his comfortability in this offense, and just when he was able to be able to do things like that, is it built into the offense? Stuff like that.
Yeah, I think he's made a lot of growth. And I think that's, again, when we talked in the offseason about him learning what it takes to be an SEC quarterback, all of that stuff goes into it. The first thing that happens when a really talented player gets on campus is he relies on his talent. And then somewhere along the line, he realizes, whoa, okay, now I kind of understand why you were talking about all those things, why pre-snap reads matter, why getting us in the right play matters, but you don't know all that until you actually have to go through it and do it. And I think that was the learning curve that he went through on a really high level last year, to then open his eyes to what it really took from a work standpoint to get there. And then the credit to him for everything that he put in this offseason to elevate his game to be able to do things like that.
Stay to the left, second row, Alex.
2 forced fumbles this last weekend. Just how much of an emphasis has been forcing turnovers been on the defensive side these recent weeks?
Yeah, I mean it's a massive emphasis. It's good that it's starting to happen more. It's a big part of I think the final step of what we need to do to be the defense we want to be. And so again, we talk about maybe trying to do a little bit better job of recovering the ones that get on the ground, but to have 2 strip sacks in that game, one of which obviously we recovered that set up a critical touchdown, I think is is a big part of being good on defense. And so, I think that's the final piece of the equation that's starting to come around a little bit more week in, week out.
Go to the right, back over to Carter.
How rare is it for Trey to play left tackle as well as he does, but also play center and seem like he's played it for a while? And I remember he said he'd never played that position before this year. How rare is that, and what has enabled him, you think, to play both of them pretty well?
Yeah, I think, one, he's a veteran player. I think that's a good starting point. I think his knowledge of college football and what it means to be an O-lineman matters a lot. And so, I don't know that there's a lot of freshman tackles that we would try to do that with. And so that plays a role. He's a phenomenal kid. And so whatever you throw at him, he'll aggressively attack to be as good as it as he possibly can. And so that mindset is a really good starting point. And then, it's unique. And the way we always said, we've sold it this way, like since Coach Cushing and I have been together, it's not as rare for us. It certainly probably is in the bigger picture of it all. But, the reality of it is NFL teams carry 7-8 offensive linemen. And so they don't even dress a two deep. And so if you don't have position flexibility at the next level, then you better be a first-round draft pick, or you better be an all-pro, or you're always going to potentially be on the chopping block for a guy who's a little bit more versatile. And so that's how we sell it to our guys, is if you all want to play in the NFL, you all want to play at the next level, Trey's going to have unbelievable value. And that's another kid who I think has greatly enhanced his draft status by coming back. Now he's got game film as a center, so now he's an SEC left tackle and an SEC center. That's only going to help him as he moves forward into the next level of his career too.
To the left, fifth row, Coach.
South Carolina has 222 passing yards against Alabama, and it was a close loss. And those yards are 100 above their normal average. And I know how you said that they are playing hard teams and they have a hard schedule. How do you think that builds up into playing us? And I know you're talking about defense and how our defense has reflected and they're building and they're growing. What do you see in our defense at practice that we can't see, like in the game, or that we see on the field? What do you see, and how do you see them growing, and how will that prepare them to go up against South Carolina?
Yeah, I think in terms of them, again, it's an extremely talented group. They've got a quarterback who I think is capable of beating you with his arm and his legs. They've got one of the most physically impressive wide receivers I've seen in 30 years of college football. Nick Harbor is 6'5", 235. He's probably going to run 4.27 or faster at the combine. I hope I didn't insult him. I hope he's not completely faster than that. But he can absolutely fly. Like, DBs are running away from him on the snap, and he still runs past them. It's one of the most impressive things I've ever seen. And so I just think that talent, and they also got some young kids developing and coming along at the wide receiver position that I'm sure after a bye week they're going to have some really creative ways to get the football. And so, again, when you look at them, I went through this is what I talked to the staff about. Like, my first year, and this is what makes the SEC different. My first year here as the defensive coordinator, we lined up against a 1-5 Ole Miss team who had A.J. Brown and D.K. Metcalf and Laramie Tunsil and Kenny Knox, and I'm sure I'm missing a couple, but it was like that was my welcome to the SEC moment. Like, you don't get weeks off. You don't get – all you have is teams that were able to find ways to win games, and for whatever reason, teams that weren't. And all of that happens on 3.5 hours every Saturday. And so every Saturday you're at risk in this conference. That's just the way it is. And so, we have to go play, regardless of what their record is, a really, really talented football team on Saturday. And it's the same team that beat us by 25 points or whatever it was last year and really embarrassed us up and down the field. And so if any of our players or anyone thinks it's going to be anything different than that, they're kind of crazy.
To the left, Robert.
Getting back to the fake punt, Mike, how much you're on your side, so how much do you factor in how your defense is possibly playing when you do that? And was that your first fake punt as a head coach?
No, wasn't my first fake punt as a head coach. Wasn't the first one we've called here. We've called a few of them. We just haven't gotten any of them run yet. Yeah, I think you factor in a lot of things. I think, there's times where you feel really good about the momentum of the game and you don't want to give the momentum of the game away. There's times where you feel the momentum maybe working against you, and If the opportunity presents itself to steal momentum, it's always important. Same thing, like it's the same thought process you have in going for it on fourth down. There's times where you just feel like it's the right thing to do, and then there's times where you don't.
Amari Daniels, you didn't use him. Was his health or maybe pecking order, in the game against Missouri?
A little bit of pecking order. Still got a lot of confidence in Amari, and I think you'll see him again moving forward, just kind of the way the game played out Saturday.
Back over to the right, Olin.
And Mike, I just wanted to ask you about, you mentioned the run defense. You said, you want to do it better, but I know obviously you can't take away the first carry and Hardy's last carry, but aside from those two, what was the evaluation overall?
Yes, I don't do that. Like, I don't take carries away. And so we have to be better. And again, like, I think to your point, and this is the right point, like, are we capable? Yes. Like, when you have certain levels of success at certain points, it leads you to believe that you're capable of. But at the end of the day, our job on defense is get the job done consistently, start to finish, and we're not doing that at the level we need to on stopping the run right now. And so there's other things that go into it. We're not going to completely sell out to do it. We're not going to completely take away our pass rush to do it. We're not going to, because all of it counts, right? At the end of the day, the most important thing is total yards and points. But, if you just look specifically at the run defense, there are certainly areas we can improve.
Close out with Travis.
Mike, I know new play caller for South Carolina has changed. Does it change how do you prepare for a situation like that, especially when they're on a bye week?
Yeah, it's really challenging. It's really a blank slate that they've had, a week to look at our defense, a week to formulate a plan based off of everything they've learned about our defense. You would assume that they're going to have a really, really strong plan coming into the game. You don't imagine they can change too much because obviously it's a little bit like we talked about with Missouri with the quarterback. 11 kids have been running a certain system, so they're certainly not going to completely change the entire system. But, wrinkles, tweaks, different things, motions, formations, stress points, you can change a lot in 2 weeks. And so I'm sure it'll be a little bit of a whirlwind in the beginning of the game trying to figure out where it's going and what direction it's heading. And, obviously important to try to find ways to kind of stem that tide a little bit.
All right. Thanks for your time, Coach.
Yeah, thank you.